basketball game right here with all the football going on during the day.
Yeah, me
Seems
too.
like maybe last night would have been a better time to play the game, but they're playing at 12 o'clock up in Louisville, and that's on the ACC network. But
Well, Lady Vols have got a home game at 12 o'clock today.
Yeah, but Louisville, heck, they're not the same team as they were in the past. So hopefully the Vols can go up there and take care of business. And their November schedule, they got Montana, Austin Peay, UT Martin. They do have I think, a tournament where they got Virginia and either Baylor or St. John's. And what looks the most attractive there is either a game maybe with Baylor and Rick Pitino and St. John's. So we'll see. But this will be a good test for them on the road today at Louisville. We'll see how that turns out. The Lady Vols, gosh, no problem here. They beat Samford 101-53 and UT Martin 90-50. And I'm showing that their next game is Middle Tennessee State at home next Tuesday. But they've got
they got one today.
Oh, well, I know I know the Vols have one today.
Well, the Lady Vols do too.
Okay.
Now, Liberty's coming to town.
Okay. Well,
Lady Flames coached by a Friendsville High School graduate and my good friend Kerry Green.
Okay. Well,
at noon.
Okay. Well, I missed that then. But anyway, they got Middle Tennessee State next Tuesday if in fact they have Liberty today. But I was looking at their schedule, Marcus. You got Kim Caldwell coming in here, and it's really kind of a rebuilding, revamping, new coach type situation. And their schedule, they've played Samford, they played UT Martin, they got Liberty, they got Western Carolina, they got North Carolina Central, they got Winthrop. And then I'm looking at the other teams. They've got Florida State, that's ranked 19th preseason. They got Iowa, been a good matchup last year. They got Memphis, Richmond, and Tulsa. So the only ranked team they got there is Florida State going to the SEC schedule. I think Kim Caldwell coming in, I think they've helped her out a little bit as far as the schedule's concerned. That's the way it looks to me.
Well, and, schedules aren't thrown together like this year. So I think there's been some tweaking where there was room to tweak to get some teams on because Tennessee had an opponent that pulled out, and UT Martin filled their spot. That was how Martin got on the schedule. They've been wanting on the schedule for years, but they were able to fill in and move one of their own games to accommodate the Lady Vols. But I think you got where they could make some changes, they did, recognizing the program was in a rebuild. But I think you also see several of the SEC teams, maybe not the South Carolina level, but that 5, 6, 7, 8 potential teams that are backing off that non-conference schedule just a little bit or maybe a little bit more. Because when you look at who you've got to play in the league now, when you add a Texas to your schedule, when you add Oklahoma to your schedule, that makes that conference schedule so much tougher because you're potentially playing 3 top 5 teams in conference play, maybe some of them twice. That's a lot.
Yeah. And she's playing a platoon system, Donnie. 5 in, 5 out. I'm kind of anxious to see how all that plays out. 90 feet, pressing, pulling in, pulling out, fresh legs, fresh bodies. Yeah. We'll see how that.
She had a quote I heard yesterday said teams are going to hate to play us.
Yeah. Well, we hope that's the case.
And by the way, Mike, I was misinformed, and I stand corrected. Liberty comes next Saturday instead of today.
Okay, that's fine.
Noon.
That's fine. Well, they're on the schedule, so we know that.
They are.
They're coming in here.
If you think about that, we've seen that style of play here in the county.
Yeah, William Blunt.
William Blunt.
William
Todd Wright's offense.
Yeah.
We've seen it over at Maryville College when he was there. We've seen it since he left over there. I mean, and we know from watching that you can beat some teams you're on par with playing that way.
Yeah.
And you can really run up the score on teams you're better than. But when you run into teams that are better than you, that are shooting better than you are, or have a height advantage that they can go over you, you run into problems very quickly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Baseball team, little fall baseball for the UT baseball team. They called it Inter-Squad World Series. They had a game in Chattanooga, and last night or yesterday they were up at Smokies Park. The last game in Smokies Park
The
played by the UT baseball team.
Last game period, as far as we know.
Yeah, and you can go up there, I think November the 21st. It's going to be open to the public, and they're going to sell stadium stuff. You can go up there and buy a couch and a chair and table.
You can buy the signs off the wall.
Yeah,
sure.
So what I'm wondering is, we need to ask our boss about this. Like, does the goatees sign over the souvenir shop? Does that come off?
Is it fair game?
Is it fair game going up for auction, or
yeah, probably is?
does he have dibs on that to bring
Probably
it back, or
he's probably already got in his trunk.
Yeah, that could happen.
I want the fire extinguishers out in the outfield
Yeah.
fence. I was kidding when we had the Smokies president on a couple weeks ago. I was kidding him about that. They used to have back in the day, before all of the niceness was done in the outfield, when they did the fireworks, it wasn't uncommon for them to set that hill on fire.
Yeah, the berm.
And
They had
a special fireworks or fire extinguisher station behind the outfield wall where those guys could grab 5 or 6 fire extinguishers and go put out the fire on the hill.
Yeah. I don't want to take anything away from the football game today, but we talked a little bit about this before the show. But the football uniform for the Mississippi State game today is going to it's Pat Summit blue, and it's going to be accessory. That's the powder blue trim, I assume, that Pat Summit had on the Lady Vol basketball uniforms. And that's what today's going to be honoring. They're going to use it as an accessory.
That's what they tell us anyway.
Well, I'm going to set the record straight. She didn't really have anything to do with that powder blue at all. That powder blue on the basketball uniforms came from Ray Mears. Our uniforms had powder blue. All the uniforms that Ray Mears had here looked like the Lady Vol uniforms with the orange and the white and the powder blue because they needed a trim color. And Coach Mears decided on the powder blue for his uniform. So his whole tenure here had powder blue on the uniforms. Now, here's what actually happened. Pat Head Summit, after Coach Mears retired, Pat Head Summit called Coach Mears and asked permission to use that powder blue on her uniforms. How about that deal? So she's getting credit today, but the whole credit's not hers. Let's put it that way.
That's better than what I heard, because I heard she'd use the recycled uniforms that they wouldn't get her new ones, so she was using the men's uniforms that had the powder blue on it. So I like your version of the story better.
Well, that's exactly what happened, and that came right from Coach Mears' mouth because, you know, I was out there the day after she called, and he goes, Michael, you know who called me yesterday? Coach Summit wants to use the powder blue on her basketball uniforms. I said, what'd you tell her? She said, I told her to go right ahead. I'd be glad to let her use that powder blue on the uniform. So when you're watching that game tonight, you need to think a little bit about Ray Mears along with Pat Head Summit. Huh?
And nobody, you may be the only person who knows that, Mike.
Huh?
You might still be the only person who realizes and knows that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because if you think about it, all the guys who would have known about it in the UT Athletic Department are gone and retired.
Right.
And all the photos are black and white.
Right.
Well, the secret's out now.
I don't want to put a damper on the game, and if UT's listening, I don't want them to pull the powder blue off the accessories tonight. I just want to set the record straight a little bit, you know, on that.
Give credit where credit's due.
That blue is actually UT has actually trademarked that blue as Pat Summit blue now.
Yeah, well,
that particular shade.
If Coach Mears was here, he would want a cut off of that. I can assure you.
I'm sure he'd get a cut off of it.
Hey, last Saturday night around midnight, Tennessee outlasted a beaten-up Kentucky team, 28-18, and that score was actually 21-18 with about, 3 minutes to go in the game, and things were getting a little bit hairy.
It wasn't,
in the fact that Kentucky had the ball there late but couldn't get anything done with it, and then Tennessee scored late and put the football game away. But Kentucky came in and give them a little bit of credit. They came in here. Everybody kind of thought, well, this will, and me included, I thought it might be a game where Tennessee could feast and get their offense going, and Kentucky's down, and they got 15 players out, but not so fast. Huh?
We all thought that, Mike.
Yeah.
At least around this table we did.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a pretty win, Marcus, but a win is a win, and that's what you want to do. You want to win and advance, and that's what they did. And that's what they've pretty much done all season long.
And I'm going to be self-centered and say I enjoyed the game because it was one game this year I'm going to get to go to. The fact that it was a contest the entire game, I actually enjoyed that.
Yeah.
that it was, still in doubt going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
That made it a fun game.
Well,
but I mean, what's the point of if it's 56-21? Yeah, everybody's celebrating, but also you're headed to your cars by that point. By the time you get to the fourth quarter, when you're up by 35.
yeah, well, I was agonizing because I was tired and I was ready to go to bed, and I thought, put them away in the first quarter. I'm ready to go to bed, and then the second quarter ended, and I go, what are you doing? I'm really more tired than I was before the game. The third quarter in, and I was barely had my eyes open because
Just hanging on then, weren't you?
barely hanging on. What are you doing to me here?
Well, then you should go out for receiver, Mike. They barely had their eyes open either.
I guess. Well, I guess my question's this. Donnie, you can go ahead and jump on it first. The rest of the season, are we going to continue to win ugly and get by with it, or are we going to come out today against Mississippi State and everything on all cylinders finally clicks and we get this deal, we get the ship righted, so to speak?
Well, you would like to think, Mike, that things will start falling into place eventually. But, who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know whether we're going to just do like with this status quo or not.
Yeah.
Well,
we
like
can't.
you said, we've
we don't
won ugly.
We don't show up till second half.
Right.
And it doesn't matter who we're playing. We don't
No.
show up to the second half. What kind of team they got to win? And Marcus, how long can Tennessee play and get away with this without stumbling? Now, you got Georgia next week. Going to be a tough game, but you got Vanderbilt, Lincoln. They're playing as well as anybody else in this league right now.
That's true.
That's true, and they're getting the SEC Shorts visit today.
Nice.
From the Vanderbilt King is going to be in Nashville today for their game.
Okay.
But
All right.
to answer the question, I mean, it's not what fans expect, because we expect Tennessee to throw it all over the place and play as quick as possible. But there's two things that happened. One is after year 4, you finally got a defense that you don't have to play that way because they can actually defend.
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually leave them, put them on the field, and they'll get off the field. But the other thing is you run out of a string of quarterbacks with 5 years of college experience before they got under center for Tennessee. So you have a little bit of game management change that has to take place to run Josh Heupel's offense at that speed. I think we've seen moments where Tennessee has done that, but I think the penalty rate is making that prohibitive, and some of the decision-making when they get too fast has been prohibitive.
Yeah. Donnie, I'm going to start with you. Rate this team. Are they average, good, or excellent?
This is a good football team.
Good
Right
football
now, they're
team.
not an excellent football team.
And are you basing that a lot on the play of the defense?
Yes,
Yeah.
the defense raises the level of this football team right now.
Yeah.
Offensively, they're not a whole lot more than average, except for Dylan Sampson.
And right now they've got them, number 7 in the polls?
Yeah.
Is that correct? Number 7 in the polls as a good football team. And you'd like to think if you're in the top 10, you would be approaching that excellent, but I don't know. Marcus, where you got them? You got them average, good, or excellent?
My jury is still out as a TBD, but the thing I would note is if this was 1990 and I was to tell you Tennessee had one of the nation's best defenses and the top running back in the SEC and was winning by an average of 2 touchdowns, would you be disappointed?
If it was 1990?
If it was 1990, you would be thrilled.
Yeah, you'd be elated, wouldn't you?
Because it's just that we've gotten into these scoring binges in this age of football that we're not satisfied with the win. We're only satisfied if we win by 4 touchdowns
Win big.
and have this thing over by halftime sort of things.
Yeah. I've got them good, but I've got them on the lower part of the good right now. Right there in the middle.
They've got some work to do. That's for sure.
They do have some work to do, and I think that their schedule has been accommodating to a lot of this. But the fact that they have struggled with teams that I believe have just been average to poor, I just don't think they warrant anything higher than that right now. Now, if they win big today and they go down and beat Georgia, then by golly, I'm changing my my deal.
There's wiggle room there.
Yeah, but right now,
You know what they
Okay,
are, Mike?
yeah.
You're going to hate this. They are the Rick Barnes equivalent of football.
That's exactly
They are
right.
all defense
That's
with
exactly
a big
right.
scorer,
And that's exactly
but
right.
but they're not going to blow out everybody.
And that's why last Saturday night, the fact that the game was on late, they couldn't put anybody today, and it was all defense, was absolutely putting me to sleep.
Yeah.
Because you're right. That they look like the football version of Rick Barnes. Let's talk about Nico. Nico, the quarterback, NIL deal, $8 million. I'll start with you, Marcus. Based on the 8 games that he's played this year, and we'll just throw in a couple of those games he played last year, Iowa bowl game. What has Nico? What's his worth? How much money has he earned on that $8 million based on his pay, based on his play?
Well, let's see. So you're talking $2 million a year. So what do you value a UT win at? I mean,
No, I'm not talking about his play. I'm not talking about a win. I'm talking about his play, because we had a lot of people thinking, "Hey, this guy's he's going to be a nut. He's going to be a one and done, and he's going to be out of here." Well, we know that's not going to happen at this point.
That was over the top expectation. In reality, he's talented. He's not the most talented quarterback in that class. But he's also stepped into a very football an offense that requires a high level of football intelligence. So he's developing. Is he worth $200,000 a game? I don't know. The test of that is you ask every UT fan coming into the stadium if they'd give $2 to Nico and see how many would pay.
What's he earned based on his play of that $8 million to this point?
I think you can only judge that by UT's other options, and what we've seen from those other options would not win some of those games.
Dollar amount.
Well, it's not from – I'm stingy, Mike.
Donnie, you want to answer the question?
I'm thinking you should be happy with your scholarship.
What has he earned out of that $8 million to this point, based on his play?
Based on his play, he's earned $500,000 max, I think.
Okay. Have you had time to think about it, Marcus?
Like I said, I am cheap and old school to a degree that, you know what, you're getting a free education and a free place to live and a better meal plan than the average student, so you should be happy with that.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not an NIL fan. I understand why it's good for the athletes. I understand getting them a cut of the money. I don't think the way it's been implemented is good for college athletics.
Okay, well, let's answer this before we get out of here. Has he lived up to the $8 million NIL money that he's getting?
I'm going to take the guess, and I said before if it was $2 million a year. I don't know that it's structured that way. It could be structured so that it's $500,000 this year and goes up as for every year he stays. But if it was the $2 million, then no, he hasn't lived up to a $2 million season.
I'm going to say not yet, but I think he's got almost unlimited potential.
Yeah.
So if he continues to develop and in the ways of the offense and in football, then who knows? Maybe so.
If he stays 4 years, that's $2 million a year.
Yep.
We don't have anybody here that feels like he's earned $2 million so far this year. I don't think so.
No, but if he goes out and throws for 3,000 yards next year, you might have a different.
We're not to next year yet.
Well, that's
we're
what
working
I mean.
on the $2 million here.
We're working on that assumption that it's $2 million a year. It might be 500,000 this year and 2.5 next year.
It could be.
You don't know how it's structured.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Donnie Moore, you're over there. Is it time to?
It's time. Yes, we need to take a break.
Hey, we'll take a time out here, and when we return, Donnie Moore will provide high school football scores and other sports news from around the area, and veteran sports writer Marcus Fitzsimmons joins us with his feature Mark It Down. You're listening to the Goatee Sports Page, Blount County Sports Voice, and now stay tuned for the best in local sports.
For over 90 years, Anderson Lumber Company in Alcoa has proudly served and supported our local communities. Locally owned, so the money made here stays here. Whether you're renovating a kitchen, bath, new floors, doors, or windows, Anderson Lumber is so much more than a lumber store and can take care of you from design to install. We welcome you to visit Anderson Lumber in Alcoa for all your home's needs, or shop over 67,000 items online at AndersonLumberCompany.com. Anderson Lumber since 1925.
Aubrey's is known for real comfort, real food, real good. But remember, Aubrey's is also really into Blount County. Aubrey's Maryville has been a strong supporter of local schools and sports programs for more than 15 years. From baseball to football, dance teams, and marching bands, Aubrey's has helped schools and youth programs generate thousands of dollars. It's easy for us to do because it's the right thing to do. So the next time you're looking to choose a place to eat, we hope you'll choose Aubrey's. Real comfort, real food, real good. See what's on the menu at aubreysrestaurants.com.
Welcome back to the Goatee Sports Page, and I'm here with Donnie Moore and Marcus Fitzsimmons. And Donnie Moore, first weekend of high school football playoffs last night, and kind of had a mixed bag, winners and losers here in the county, huh?
Yeah, we did. We sure did, Mike. You know, round one has never been more exciting as far as I'm concerned, Marcus.
It's been a while since we saw first round that we saw last night. I lost count, but I have never seen that many 4-1 upsets that I can remember. Maybe there's been one, but I want to say there were at least 6 last night.
I'd say you're very close to.
And that's just just not a norm. I think it'll all balance out by the time we get to the quarterfinals. But there were a lot of higher than usual 4-1s, and there were quite a number of 3-2 upsets.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's true. Well, anyway, the upshot is in the football prep playoffs, round one, sponsored by TSSAA, we had 5 local teams in action. 4 in Division I and 1 in Division II last night. We count Seymour and TKA as our local Greenback as our local teams as well around here. They're not Blount County teams, but they're local. Let's start with Division I and move up in classifications as we go along. In Class 2A, Eagleton College and Career Academy traveled to Bledsoe County last night. That was the 3 and the 2 seeds, Marcus. And Bledsoe County took care of business in that game and defeated Eagleton 45-0.
It was an ouch moment,
yeah, it
and
was.
I think Eagleton would say that. But at the same time, I think Eagleton did well in their region to get the 3 and be in competition for the 2 seed.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it wouldn't have mattered. Eagleton plays in Region 1, 2A, and that whole region went down last night. It was a complete sweep by Region 2. That was one of the 4-1 upsets we were talking about, where Tellico Plains went up to South Green and won 30-28. So it was a top-to-bottom sweep. There's nobody left from Region 1. I think this is an exceptionally good year for Region 2. They have a lot of strong teams.
Do you say Tellico Plains won that one?
Yes.
Well, on the TSSAA website, it was 30-28 South Green.
No, it's been updated. It was wrong
Okay.
at first, but it's been updated.
all
Tellico
right, very
Plains
good.
won that one 30-28.
So 30-28, Tellico Plains. Good for the Bears. Let's move up to 3A. Alcoa hosted Pigeon Forge last night in what was ostensibly Coach Scott Meadows of Pigeon Forge's final game as a coach. We've heard that before.
I was going to say, we're going to take that with a grain of salt. We're
Yes,
going to
we
trust
are.
him, but we're going to wait to verify that actually happens.
Yeah, we are. So we'll see about that.
We've seen Coach Meadows, and there's been departures from teams in this area, and there's been retirements before and from Pigeon Forge 8 years ago. So Still wish him the best of luck. If it turns out
Oh,
to be
yeah.
his last game, I hate that it was at Alcoa.
There's only a few schools he hadn't coached at, isn't there?
Well, you know, yeah, there are a few.
He's been to just about every one of them.
He came back to Alcoa last night after having won a state championship there.
2000 title.
And that's right. In 2000.
And he did. I think he was there for the 2001 season that lost in the, I believe, the quarterfinals.
Yeah. But anyway, Alcoa wins this one 56-21 last night.
And
49 to 7 at halftime.
Let's say they were up 49-0 before
Yeah.
Pigeon Forge scored, and before Alcoa was subbing in the second quarter, and at the point the subs went in on defense, I'll say, by the time you got deep on the bench, it was 49-0.
Yes.
Pigeon Forge hadn't accumulated a first down and had 32 yards of offense for the entire half at that point. So.
And Alcoa played lots of not only twos but threes in this game. There were a lot of freshmen and sophomores that played in this game.
There were, and I think that's why you see Pigeon Forge got some of the points they did, not to detract from Pigeon Forge.
No.
I believe you should keep on competing. But, I mean, Alcoa looked as efficient as they have been. I mean, the only thing you can say is Eli Graff made one incompletion. That was about the only thing that did not work for them.
Yeah.
They had 3 one-play drives. I mean, you just can't ask any more for them to look as a tune-up.
Very smart quarterback. Plays smart too. So.
And Mr. Football semifinalist.
Yeah.
He and Eli Owens were both named semifinalists.
That's true.
On Thursday.
Yep, you're right. Well, anyway, 56-21 Alcoa last night. They will play what was supposed to be odds-wise Johnson County last night, but Johnson County got beat. Austin East beat Johnson County 25-13.
People are going to scratch their heads about that one because that game was up at Mountain City.
Mm-hmm.
But Austin East went up there and won 25-13.
Yeah.
I missed 3 extra points, but still won. And then you had GP upsetting Kingston. So
Yeah,
basically Unicoi County is the only team left standing from Region 1 in that quad.
Goodness.
So they took 3 of the 4.
Goodness. So that's the 3A roundup. Moving to 6A, we had 2 Blount County teams playing in the 6A first round playoffs. Maryville High School hosted William Blount High School last night. And William Blount made a good showing of themselves, Mike. They scored 24 points against Maryville. Not all against Maryville's ones, of course, but 49-24 was your final score. And next up for Maryville, they will play Science Hill. Were they the one in the other region, Marcus?
No, they were the 2.
They were the 2.
And they
for
came back
Cleveland.
because they trailed Cleveland at half.
Yeah.
And they had to rally back and win up in Johnson City.
Yeah, 30-28.
Yeah, it was a close game. And on the other side of that, the teams that people would know, Farragut was up at halftime again.
Yes.
They had Dobbins Bennett on the ropes, and same thing that happened against Maryville a week ago. Dobbins Bennett stormed back and came back to win that one convincingly, 42-24. And then on Thursday night with the Mark Packer special playoff version, Bearden took the 49-14 win. But for, a half there, it looked like we were going to get a Bearden-Farragut rematch in the second round.
That's true.
Did Maryville have trouble with Science Hill early in the year? Didn't they score?
They had a non-conference game, and it was pretty convincing, Maryville.
It was, okay.
Yeah, Maryville played really well, as I remember.
Who was it that Maryville played and had to score right there at the end of the game to win it?
Well, that was Science Hill,
Yeah.
but that was a game that was the score did not reflect the stats.
Okay, but they were down there and they were on the ropes right there in the last play of the game. I believe.
It took Price Davis going across with a minute to go.
Yeah. Well, that's it for Division I. Let's move to Division II now. In Division IIA, Kings Academy traveled to Columbia Academy. Where is Columbia, Marcus?
It is south of Nashville.
Okay. Middle Tennessee.
Middle Tennessee. It's down there beneath the Saturn plant.
Gotcha.
Or the old Saturn plant.
Spring Hill.
Yes,
Okay.
it's Maury County.
Maury County. Gotcha. Okay. Well, anyway, TKA comes away with their season ended. Columbia Academy wins that one 49-8, and they would have had to go next week to Trinity Christian, which is in Jackson, Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, as bad as things are in Division I with some of the travel, and I've got a story, but
is unreal.
D2, where you're making almost a 4-hour bus trip
Yeah.
to go from Seymour to Columbia, that's a little bit much for a first-round playoff game,
Yeah,
you would
is.
think. But
It
then
is.
again, with some of the things like region in Class 6, you know, you had Hendersonville where state championships were for cross-country yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
but Hendersonville had to get on the bus and go to Memphis and Southwinds to play a first-round game. And that makes absolutely no sense for those Region 7, Region 8 pairings
No.
because of where the big schools are located. Just don't work out geographically for the playoffs.
Goodness gracious. Anyway, Trinity Christian defeats FACS, which is First Assembly Christian School, 35-6 last night. So Trinity Christian advances. Columbia Academy advances in D2 Class A. Well, Marcus, let's move on, and you want to give us an update on the cross country state championships?
Well, it was 2 days of championships up there on the lake in Hendersonville. They did for Division I, the public schools, they did AA on Thursday and AAA yesterday, and it was the last AA meet on Thursday. So Alcoa did, depending on which seedings you looked at, both teams beat their seed, which was good. Both of them are running pretty team-oriented this year, not really a front runner that's going to go in the top 10, but good performances. The girls finished just outside the top 5, and the boys were just outside the top 10. AAA yesterday, it wasn't as good a performance from our team. Not a good performance, good result from our teams. But when you get into AAA, the field is just so deep, and the number of runners that are going to crack that top, that 2-minute window at the top is so much deeper. It's just not. There's not a comparison.
Mm-hmm.
So Heritage boys qualified. We may have them special guest here in a minute.
It just
Preview
could
for
be.
that. Avery Joe Thomas had a great run for the Lady Mountaineers as an individual to finish in the top 30. Maryville girls also qualified, as well as the boys team. Both of them, I think they were happy with their runs from talking to them afterwards, but again, the difference of how you can place is just so vast, because where you saw guys who were finishing maybe 2 or 3 places apart at regional or 1 or 2 places apart at county, they were 10 and 12 places apart at state, and that makes such a world of difference when you're counting up those scores.
Yes, it does. You're right. Well, thank you, Marcus. Appreciate that update right there. And, with that, we're going to tell you that that's all for the Mandy B. Street Realty local scoreboard, sponsored, as always, by our good friend and realtor, Mandy B. Street. So we're going to turn it over to veteran sports writer Marcus Fitzsimmons for his feature, Mark It Down, after I tell you that you're listening to WKCE 92.5 FM and 1180 AM Mid-Century Radio.
Well, thanks, Donnie.
You're welcome, Marcus.
I kind of preluded to it, so the people who were tuning in, who hit the 10:30 spot and were waiting for these guests, they got a little bit of the tease. Heritage Cross Country is joining us this morning, and Coach, thanks for coming in here. I would say you ran over, but you had a little bit of a time to drive over yesterday. But for Tennessee's longest running sports program to have the longest running people at Heritage, it's kind of fun. Tell me a little bit about state and what you all felt like on the ride home last night.
I think we walked away.
Okay, go.
Oh, we're good. Okay. I think we walked away pretty content with the season. we lost 3 great seniors. They were the heart of our program. They really established, what we have now, and to lose those guys, it was a big deal, and it was hard to replace them. But we had some sophomores here today that really stepped up and kind of carried the load all season long. And State kind of looked like a bit of a long shot, at the beginning of the season, but we chipped away, and just making it to State for such a young team that was kind of unproven at the beginning of the year is a testament to their hard work and just how hard they've worked all summer long, all fall, and how much they bought into our program. So I'm really proud of them, and I think they should be proud of themselves too, because if you look at where these young guys placed last year at State compared to this year, they've only gotten better. So like I said, it's just a testament to their hard work and dedication to our program.
Well, I want to start off with Avery Joe. When we'll come back to your sidekicks here, but talk a little about. She was like split this fall. She was doing 2 sports, but now that she's had a couple weeks to focus on cross country, it looked like she had a fantastic run yesterday.
Yeah, so that's been a challenge for me as a coach, is to kind of balance her soccer and running balance. But she's worked really hard. I think this last season, starting in the spring during track, she really turned her focus towards running, and it's paid off big time. Like you saw yesterday, she was 123rd at State last year as a sophomore, and then this year as a junior she was 27th. So just a phenomenal performance for her, and I'm excited to see what she can do for our team next year.
Yeah, because if she can make that kind of jump, I'll say the winning time was from Nolensville, 17:28. She came across in 19:31. And that gap, like I said, at regional, that gap would have probably been 1 to 12, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
At State, that's 1 to 30. It's just such a competitive field up there.
Right. And with us moving down to AA next year, I think it's only going to help our programs, help AJ out. She'd probably be a top 5, top 10 runner in AA, and these guys, should come in top 15, top 10 team. So it's going to have a tremendous effect on our program and our success going forward.
Okay. Well, we're doing something a little bit different this week because we had some technical difficulties last week, and we were off the air the week before. So we're actually doing 3 Player of the Week presentations this week to catch up.
Nice.
We want you to take this to Avery for her performance at State as the Anderson Lumber Company Player of the Week for November 9. Remember, the date's going to be important here, Donnie.
Yep.
November 9.
I was checking that out.
Okay. So, come back to you got 2 guys with you here. Introduce these very shy and unassuming runners that you have here with you.
So to my right is Timmy Wheeler. These guys are both sophomores, and then to his right is Landon Foucher. Both sophomores, both great guys, hardworking. Couldn't ask for better young leaders for our team.
So, guys, what was the experience like for you? Was it eye-opening to be up there in that field yesterday?
Yeah, it was definitely something different because it's like biggest race we've been to. It was different placing 6th at regions and then placing 130 at State.
Kind of what I was talking about. And your time was not that much different, was it?
It was really different. Yeah, harder course, harder conditions, but we have to make it work,
So the thing I always ask underclassmen when they go to State, how did you feel about that start line? Because that is as a course, I think one of the most brutal starts you will see anywhere.
It's tough. It's a lot of people. It was hard to break in without getting jumped in front of. That happened a lot, but some people fall. It was rough.
And for people who've never seen that it's a straightaway that narrows the entire length as it goes up.
Oh, wow.
And then it makes a right-hand turn that is, in my opinion, way too narrow to get that field through on that first exit. And you see a lot of people getting pinched and pushed back and elbows, and not intentional most of the time, but people it's very easy to get knocked off your stride in that crowd, isn't it?
Yeah, it's tough.
So is that something Coach has worked with you guys on? Like, has he put you out with the football team to get you ready for something like that, or?
Not exactly. We before state we did some workouts to help us go out in the pace we needed to, because we knew it was going to be really tough. Because as you know, the start is always the hardest part. So, and also, it really helped us out to get our pace, get where we wanted to go, and go from there.
Okay, so we're gonna see how much truthfulness there is here, because we're gonna ask the Mountaineers: are the hills the toughest part about that course?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, Coach, climbing the mountains is important.
Yeah.
How do you get them? I mean, you can go out there and run that course. You can warm up on that course. You can run a meet. It seems like it's a very different course than what you can find here.
Yeah. I mean, we've ran some tough courses like, our county championship, Maryville College, I'd say is a little tougher. We run Victor Ashe in Knoxville. That one's a little bit more challenging than state. But really, until you've ran state and ran in that environment, you don't really know what a big-time, meet feels like until you're in that moment. And they were there last year as freshmen, but it was a little different for them last year. For them last year, it was more like, we made it. Competing wasn't really necessarily on the table. But now that they've grown and improved so much, actually showing up and competing is the main goal. Whereas last year, it was kind of just like, well, we got to state, we're freshmen, let's just,
You had seniors to follow last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, these guys, I think this is a great experience for them. We didn't really go to a big-time meet this year where we really had to go out really quickly in such a big crowd. So I think next year, looking back on this year, we'll probably do that just so we're more prepared for just a chaotic start line, because that is something that is definitely underappreciated about the sport. Unless you've been in those kind of big-time moments, you don't really know what that feels like until you get to state. So it can be a lot to take in.
We're always full of big ideas here at the sports page. So after watching this, I was actually thinking about this yesterday and mentioned this to Coach Frary, and he didn't tell me no. That doesn't mean it's an approval, but he didn't tell me no at the suggestion that maybe you all should have like a joint practice. Everybody qualifies for state, and get Coach O to get some of his running backs out there with the big blocking pads and just beat the guys up for 100 yards down that field and make them turn right and run out by the concession stand gate. You do that a couple times, they'll be ready for anything that can throw at them. Yeah. But we're on a more serious note. Guys, you were there last year, and for people who don't know the order, you're the last race in this championship. So that course is, if there's anything wrong with that course, you all are going to get the worst end of it. We didn't get a lot of rain. It just kind of sprinkled. It was just an impression for me, but it felt like it wasn't wet, and it was just moist enough that it wasn't the dust storm you had last year. Did it feel like it was an easier weather-wise to run it this year?
I think so. I really hated the dust storm last year, so not having that this year that's a positive.
Because I know coming down, when you come back, you're circling around, coming down one of those hills before you get up to the pavilions. It like last year, there was no grass left by the time you all were running. Like Division II had run it out that morning, and there was nothing left. But there was actually like grasses popping back up, a couple blades here and there this year. What's the, you all compete in a sport that everybody else considers punishment. You do what Mike Edwards used to do when he got in trouble with Coach Mears. So how do you keep, like, what's the mindset to stay focused in this type of event where you're running as a team, but it's an individual performance?
You can't really, you have to think, don't be selfish. You got to keep moving up for your team, better placement, everything. But, yeah, what do you think, Tim?
Well, it's like you said, it's really hard to stay focused in the race, but you got to look at the long-term goal. Like, if you stay focused, you'll get to the finish line. And that's what really helps me is that, like, if I stay locked in, I keep passing one person ahead of me. That's what I keep counting how many people I pass until I get to the finish line.
So how are Mountaineers at navigating? Like, have you made the wrong turn on a course and gone the wrong way?
No.
Has that happened? No. Okay. Okay. Just want to check. You never know. Coach, you mentioned it earlier, and I kind of referenced it, but for those who aren't familiar with it, TSSAA is now going to sort of mirror the classifications between track and cross country, because track went to 3 classes several years ago. So even though our classification system said AA, it's now actually going to be A and AA and B3 classifications. And you all, by the enrollment numbers, are going to drop down into the 2A bracket. So you're going to be in that first 2A state meet, right? That's the goal?
That's correct, yes. We're very excited about it. We just missed the cutoff, so the last classification cycle, we missed it by about 13, 14 students. So we were really close the last time. So, you know, if you think about it, we kind of should have been in AA past 2 years, but, you know, we're glad to be here now next season, and I think that bodes well for our program and these guys and how competitive we can become for not only cross country but for track as well. And
so, I mean, that's going to be a little bit of a change. It's going to may change. I mean, I don't know what they're going to end up doing with where some of the regional meets are and where they may pair you guys with and that sort of thing. But it's going to be, you're probably going to see some new courses next year and some new things to get ready for, right?
Yeah. A lot of shakeups going to happen across the state. You know, some teams moving up, some teams moving down like us. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I think we're ready for it now that these guys have gained that experience and gained that knowledge and, you know, how to compete and how to show up at a state meet. So we're ready for AA. We're ready for, you know, whatever the season throws at us. So I'm proud of these guys and proud of this program.
Well, I'm going to put in my bid now, my 2 cents, that the region championship should be held at Maryville College for AA. I just think that would be a great idea. No,
you got some looks over here.
I know they were like, I don't want to run those stairs in a region meet. I do want to ask the guys one thing before we have to take a break, but one of the things I don't think you guys may not have seen it yesterday, but at the finish line, there was a runner that collapsed about 10 yards from the finish line, and he was running with a teammate, very much like I see you guys do, who very much running close to each other. And his teammate crossed the finish line before he realized his buddy had dropped. And when, you know, once you cross the finish line, you can't go back on the course. A runner from another team picked him up and carried him across the finish line. And I was thinking, you know, only in this sport is there that kind of camaraderie with you between the competitors that would happen. Is that true? Is there just a camaraderie among runners that go out and punish themselves the way you guys do?
I mean, yeah, you may think we're enemies on the race, but we're really not. We're just a bunch of friends running. So, like, seeing that really brings out the camaraderie, like you said. And, like, after the race, everybody's so friendly to each other. Like, I was talking to some Maryville kid. Like, usually, you know how Maryville and Heritage are not best friends. We were just chatting.
Really? We might have heard some rumors to that effect.
But, yeah, so it's really nice to have a lot of friends on the course.
Because basically it's like a bunch of survivors because you all just did what you did, which everybody else would think is nuts. Yeah. Guys, congratulations on the trip to state, especially making it 2 years in a row for you guys. Coach, congratulations on a good season. Like you've mentioned, you graduated a lot of talent last year, and your guys made it back. So congratulations on everything you all put together. Thanks for joining us this morning and hanging out with us. We always put that standing offer out there. We kind of planned to have the cross-country teams to come in a certain order this year, but we always have a spot open for state champions. So if you have a state championship trophy, like you need some motivation, you're always welcome to come back and bring that trophy and show it off here. Is that fair?
That's fair. We hope to bring at least some kind of trophy back home at some point in the next few years, so we're excited.
Well, thanks for joining us this morning, and like I said, best of luck going into next season and going into track. Mike, I guess we'll go ahead and turn the page here.
Okay, Marcus, it's time to turn the page and announce the Anderson Lumber Company Player of the Week. You're listening to the Goatee Sports page, and now stay tuned for the best in local sports.
The Roger L. Newman Company began in 1984 with a vision of providing Blount County with excellent heating and cooling service. Mr. Newman also wanted a real business. No gimmicks and no high-pressure sales. They just fix it or replace it. They want to stay within your budget and make you comfortable. Their motto still stands true today. Call us first, we'll be there. Call Roger L. Newman Company at 982-5446 or visit online at rogerlnewman.com. Cooler temperatures are approaching. Upgrade your furnace now for as little as $50 a month. For over 50 years and 3 generations, the people of Blount County have trusted Stevenson Tire with their vehicles and their families. Our mission has always been simple: to provide quality products at reasonable prices with exceptional customer service. Featuring tire products from Michelin, B.F. Goodrich, Uniroyal, Bridgestone, Firestone, and Yokohama, Stevenson Tire also offers alignment and brake services at affordable prices. Stevenson Tire Company, 2411 East Broadway Avenue in Maryville. Call 983-1621 or online at stevensontire.net.
Welcome back to the Bluetick Tavern in downtown Maryville. This is Mike Edwards, along with the rest of our broadcast crew, and now it's time for the Goatee Sports Page Player of the Week segment, featuring Daily Times senior reporter Marcus Fitzsimmons, sponsored by Anderson Lumber Company, where quality service is always a priority, proudly serving Blount County for over 75 years. Marcus, a little more cross country.
Well, but it's good cross country.
Yep.
Well, I mean, we got a running theme here, but I was hoping Donnie would give me a little bit of.
I'm listening.
Okay, all right.
A running theme. I like that.
Yeah, we're going to reuse the same line we used before for Tennessee's longest running sports show. We're glad to have long distance runners. So we were joined this morning by Alcoa cross country coach Pam Haggard, and she's brought one of her Harriers with her. They are also coming off an appearance at state. As we mentioned, they were up there on Thursday. So they got not the first crack at the course, but they got a little cleaner look at that course than Heritage did with that after being the 8th race of the day. So, Coach, you come away with the boys just outside the top 10, the girls just right there on the top 5 line. It's got to feel like a good trip to state.
It felt like a very good trip. We were very pleased with our performances on Thursday. We were hoping to be right about where we were, and that's where we finished. So we were very proud. The boys especially performed a lot better than they had looked on paper coming in, and we could not be happier about that.
Now, for people that aren't familiar, there's a little bit of seating because there's math involved now where people can look look at times and do some projections and kind of seed you guys as to where they think you're going to finish. That didn't really hold up for the boys.
No, it did not. And I was hoping it would not, and I talked to them about how we have run some tough courses this season, and we didn't take a lot of opportunities to go out and get PRs, and that I was hoping for their best races to be there at state, and that's what we saw.
And, you know, I was teasing a little bit with Heritage about this, but, you know, seedings don't – it's hard to take a seeding from all these different courses and kind of put together a real projection. So the fact that you all can go out there and do this, I think always speaks well to the environment in East Tennessee, the competitiveness, but also the challenge of some of these courses that it does relate to state in a way. Victor Ashe is very comparable in some aspects. But if you're like Heritage and had to go run on that pancake down in Chattanooga, those times don't mean a thing going into state meet.
They do not, and I like hearing that because our guys were asking me, why can't we go down there for our region meet? Because they see those times and really want them. But I tell them, you know, it's to our advantage to run on these tougher courses and to run on a course that's going to be more like the state course, and then also to, you know, pull out some surprises for our competition when we get there, because they've not seen those same fast times from us, but we're just as tough.
So brag a little bit about the guy you brought with you and introduce him.
I would be happy to. This is Baker Brooks. Baker is a freshman. He has joined our team this season and has come along and very quickly became our #1 runner. He set his sights on sub-17 this season, and he managed to do that at the state meet. So he has come along very well this season and led our team very well as a freshman, and I'm very proud of him.
So first time seeing the course?
Second time.
Second
actually,
time,
yeah.
but first time as a state meet, right?
Yeah, right.
So, we're asked this question Heritage earlier, so we're putting you on the hot seat, see if you can meet their answer. How'd you enjoy that start line?
It was pretty crowded. Definitely a lot more than the first time I ran it. Shoulder to shoulder. And it got out, big clump. It shrunk out at the end, but stayed pretty close together throughout the whole race, and pretty crowded, yeah.
Okay. We made the suggestion that possibly the cross-country teams could do a combined practice and possibly get either Coach Nix or Coach O to arrange to have their backs chase the runners down the football field with the blocking pads, and then make
how
them,
do you think that would go?
and then make an abrupt right turn and run through the concession stand, just like you have to do at state down there.
Yeah.
To get you all ready. An hour or two of that, and I'm sure they'd be absolutely ready for the state meet.
It's a great idea. We will think about doing that.
I'm sure Coach Nix would love to
I'm
help
sure
out
he
with
would.
that.
I'm sure he would.
So what is the biggest challenge of that course besides the field?
I don't know. First, there's a lot of turns that are just tight coming around. Not footing's kind of not the best. Off-camera turns, that's difficult. Finding the inside line on those turns is pretty difficult to do. And the hills on the second lap really just kill you, take it out of the legs. But that's probably the hardest part, the hills, honestly. But
yeah, we didn't mention this earlier, but this is a course where you go down that straightaway, and then you're making two circuits of that course before you come back to the finish line. So you're seeing that same scenery twice.
Yeah.
What's the worst part? What's the worst thing to see the second time?
I don't know. Probably that second big hill before you get close to the 1K left on the lap mark. That hill is pretty hard to do, especially second time around, but pretty tired after that, but yeah.
And Coach, you and I talked about this, but it had not really rained, but it had misted.
Yeah.
And it was like overcast and cloudy Thursday. It was warm, but it wasn't hot. It was no bright sun.
Right.
It was just like perfect running conditions, right?
Yeah, I'll admit I had been really stressed about the weather for the last couple of weeks because it's been so warm and so muggy, and our afternoon practices have not felt like what our typical afternoon practices feel like this time of the season. So I was worried about it, but kept reassuring them, everybody, it's a race, and you're, competing against people under the same conditions. So you got to be tougher no matter what the conditions are. But boy, was it a pleasant surprise when we got off when we got off the bus. I was very shocked at how much cooler it felt and how that little mist had really helped the course out. And I think that was good for everybody competing.
And those conditions held. Like, it was that way Thursday morning. It was that way for your all's race Thursday afternoon. It was that way for Division II's race Friday morning. It was that way for the AAA girls race. The sun broke out and came out at the start of the boys.
Oh.
And suddenly it was glaring. It wasn't hot, but it was glaring sun hitting that lake at just the wrong time. That course got so bright so fast.
Better them than us.
And I don't think a single person had sunglasses or anything ready for it. But it still stayed great running conditions. So I thought it was a great, as far as the places that you can run in the state for the whole state championship, I thought it turned out really well outside of the deer.
Yeah, I really like that course, and I think for us it's similar enough to Victor Ash that it's a good combination for us at that, for a region meet and our state meet. And we do, like Baker had a chance. We always take a trip there during the season so that nobody who's going to state is seeing that course for the first time that day. Now that they've moved the meet used to be on the weekends. Now that they moved it to the weekday, we don't have the time to go up and preview the course right before the race. But I also like them just taking that same trip earlier in the season so they get a feel for what that day is going to feel like.
So you all don't,
Wait a minute. There were deer interactions?
well, better than last year. Last year the deer got involved at the start for the Division II race. This year
We didn't see that, did we, Baker?
No, there's no deer.
This time they stayed at the entrance and just kind of meandered through the parking areas occasionally, and you could occasionally hear the loud surprise from one species or the other when there were interactions down there. But no deer were hurt during the filming of this state championship, as far as I know.
Wanted to make sure you elaborated on that a little bit.
But Coach mentioned the key part, which for those of you who were listening last week and caught the short time we were able to go on due to some technical difficulties, Alcoa is making a second lap with us as well, because they were supposed to be here to talk about the region championship last week. Couldn't make it. Well, they made it. We couldn't make it. So we have some delayed awards, Coach.
Oh.
We were going to present these last week for Players of the Week. Was for the boys and girls winning the region championships, Anderson Lumber Company Players of the Week.
Oh, awesome.
And we're going to let you take the girls, and we're going
Okay.
to let Baker take the boys.
Oh, thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you.
And again, those are from Anderson Lumber Company.
Right.
And those are actually the right dates for when we planned to give them. They just, we had to do a couple today because of our backup from missing our show last week the way we planned. But
Yeah, not our fault, but
not our fault, and it's all fixed and good
it
now.
is.
But let's talk about region, Coach. I know it's a little bit of a step back from where we were talking about state, but region titles, those are a big deal.
Big deals.
And they're going to be the last ones for AAA.
Yes, yes. We were very excited coming off those regional victories. We went in wanting to have both boys and girls championships. We knew the girls had a little bit of an easier road, and the boys, it was going to be tougher. The boys came in seeded third. The girls had been seeded first, but we had lost our top runner, so we knew it wasn't going to be as easy as we hoped it would be. But both teams ran very well that day, very hard, worked together as teams, and we pulled off the championships in both boys and girls. So we left that day very happy. That's what we wanted to do. We knew they'd have to work to do it, and they did it.
Becker, what's it like when, and you've been in this position most of the season where you were running front of all your teammates.
Yeah.
When you're in that position, you have no idea what's actually going to happen as far as the team is doing because you can't see them.
No.
And Coach would kill you if you turn back to look and try to figure it out.
Yeah.
So do you just have to run with, I've just got to do the best time I can and let things work out behind me?
Yeah, I just run, and I believe in my teammates and trust that my teammates will do what they can to stay in a clump behind me, and I just trying to lead the charge and help everybody follows behind good, and I've trusted all my teammates they can race well, so it just went good for everybody that day.
So when you get through the chute, and you can actually stand and breathe again, that might take a minute. I'm not sure what kind of a runner you are,
Yeah.
if you're one of the collapsers or if you're one of the walk-it-offers.
I'll walk it off. I don't love fun. I mean, some people lay down at the line, and I put my hands on my knees for a second, give it a couple seconds, but I'll get out of the chute and then maybe lay down, but not right after the line. I'll clear out.
You only have to lay down somebody else's vomit once before you quit doing that. I'll tell you that. That happens. I've seen that happen at track. And
Making our sport sound glamorous, huh?
Yeah.
well, it did happen.
It
does
is what
happen.
it is.
It is what it
And
is.
when you
It
put
is what
that
it
many
is.
runners coming through that small of an area, it happens,
It
especially if
does.
there was a race or two before
Yes.
yours or three. But do you come out of that area and try to watch and kind of gauge and do the math? Like, are we getting close? Are we looking in that shape? Or
Yeah. So, I'll watch, but I I don't really count places. I see when they're coming through and look at the clock and see how we're doing. But I'm not super like counting places and trying to score them. But
So you're more concerned about them meeting the times that you know they can meet?
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're gauging off of?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I know. I mean, I'll usually look at the times for me and see what places each time we'll get. Like judge off of that. I don't count places exactly. It's kind of hard to, especially after you've come through a shoot. But yeah.
Coach, when we talked about this several times this season, is this team runs together very well in that they're not, I wouldn't say partners, but you have several guys that can run in the same time brackets,
Yes.
and they are very supportive of each other as they run.
Yes.
That's got to make a huge difference when you're out there, when they're out there, that you can kind of gauge if you see somebody and you don't see the other one, you know there's a problem.
Yes, absolutely. Then they've been doing that all season, and that working together is what has really that got the boys the Blount County Championship this year. That got them that regional championship. Just working with each other and kind of knowing I can start with this person, but there may be a time when they're going to take off a little bit and take the lead, but that's okay. I've got their back to this point, and then just pulling each other along. They've done a really good job of that, and that is what has brought the success that they've had.
Yeah, for sure.
And how much of this is going to bleed over to track? Do we have a distance program that's looking really strong in the 2 mile and mile coming up? Or?
I'm feeling very good about our distance program in track. Yep, I think all of these athletes are going to be out for track, and we're looking forward to getting it done on the track.
Well, hoping for great performances for Blount County's only high school without its own track. And I will continue to needle that until that problem is remedied.
Yes.
But anyway, Coach, thanks for coming in this morning and making
Thank
this second
you.
effort, second lap to come visit us. Congratulations, Baker. We didn't mention it, but I think Coach did. But you broke that 17-minute mark. I know you've been trying to get that all season, and to do it at state had to feel good. So congratulations to you guys. And Mike, we'll turn the page real quick here.
Thanks, Marcus. Time for a break, and when we return, it's the Boyd Sports Spotlight, as Donnie Moore will be up with the national sports headlines, and I'll follow up with some more college football. You're listening to the Goatee Sports page, and now stay tuned for the best in local sports.
For over 90 years, Anderson Lumber Company in Alcoa has proudly served and supported our local communities. Locally owned, so the money made here stays here. Whether you're renovating a kitchen, bath, new floors, doors, or windows, Anderson Lumber is so much more than a lumber store and can take care of you from design to install. We welcome you to visit Anderson Lumber in Alcoa for all your home's needs, or shop over 67,000 items online at AndersonLumberCompany.com. Anderson Lumber since 1925.
Aubrey's is known for real comfort, real food, real good. But remember, Aubrey's is also really into Blount County. Aubrey's Maryville has been a strong supporter of local schools and sports programs for more than 15 years. From baseball to football, dance teams, and marching bands, Aubrey's has helped schools and youth programs generate thousands of dollars. It's easy for us to do because it's the right thing to do. So the next time you're looking to choose a place to eat, we hope you'll choose Aubrey's. Real comfort, real food, real good. See what's on the menu at aubreysrestaurants.com.
Welcome back to the Bluetick Tavern in downtown Maryville. This is Mike Edwards, and it's time for the Boyd's Sports Spotlight segment. And Donnie Moore, before we get into that segment, we've got Steve Hodson here with us, longtime Blount County official, and he's going to be joining us here for the last few segments. And I just want to say there's only two officials in this county that never missed a call, Steve Hodson and the great Kenny Colder. What do you think about that, huh?
I don't know about that.
You'll take that, though, won't
I'll take it.
Well, we're happy to have you here, Steve.
Well, I appreciate it. I enjoy coming up here and listening to everything.
Yeah, well,
we'll
have some fun here. Donnie Moore, what's going on nationally, huh?
Let's get right into it, Mike. It's time for the sports headlines of the week, brought to you, as always, by Fast Signs. Whoosh. Well, the University of Florida head football coach Billy Napier will remain at the helm of the Gator program at least through the 2025 season, according to a release published by University of Florida AD Scott Strickland. You have a problem with that?
Yeah.
Well, I do too, but
My problem is the release doesn't actually say anything about how long they will keep him.
no,
It's
it doesn't.
very word jumbled.
It is. You're
There
right.
is nothing that says he's guaranteed to make it to the end of this year, much less be there for the start of the 25
Not any
season.
specificities, but
There's no guarantee he'll make it through the day.
But he
No.
didn't get
Playing
fired
Texas
anyway.
today.
It was
didn't
basically
get
a very
fired.
it was
That's a good
basically a
point.
very wordy statement that said we're not firing him as of Thursday.
Yeah, right. And you know what? The Gators under Napier went 5-7 last season and are currently sitting at 4-4. You know, I don't know how you can give a coach a vote of confidence with a record like that.
Because they played Georgia tough last week
Well, they did.
down
You're
there in
right.
Jacksonville. Had a
did.
chance to win the game with a third-string quarterback.
Yep, you're right about
Yeah.
that.
Well, they have been playing better,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they have.
you know, and they came up here and played pretty well up here. They lost in overtime, 23-17, and quarterback fumbled the ball down there on the half goal line.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, they could have very easily won this game up here.
Could have been.
Yeah, if it hadn't been for all the
So-
coaching errors, mismanagement of the clock.
That's exactly right. Right before the half, that they could have used those 3 points for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they have been playing better though, Donnie. They
You're
really
right.
have.
I
They-
agree.
yeah.
I agree. College football is preparing for the expected fallout from the House versus NCAA lawsuit, which could standardize roster sizes going forward. However, the SEC will retain their current scholarship limit of 85 for the 2025 season. The aforementioned lawsuit has now received preliminary approval from Judge Claudia Wilkin, and it states that schools would be able to begin sharing revenue with players as soon as the 2025-26 school year. What do you think? Yeah, Hod said gives us the money sign.
The money.
You're exactly right. Texas wide receiver Jonte Cook is reportedly no longer with the program. Cook hasn't played since an October 12 win versus Oklahoma because of a toe injury. He has 8 catches for 137 yards and 2 touchdowns on the season. Cook was the number 7 wide receiver in the class of 2023. So he's gone. He's no longer with the program. Yep.
Well, they got some other players.
Oh, yeah. You're right about that.
Yeah,
You're
they
right
got some other
about that.
players and a pretty good defense.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, NASCAR recently announced that one of the longest-running controversies in auto racing history is officially over. Hall of Fame driver Bobby Allison is now being recognized as the winner of a Cup Series race at Bowman Gray Stadium in Winston-Salem, North Carolina on August the 6th, 1971, Mike. 1971.
Well, it took them a while to think about it.
Yeah, it sure did.
You know,
That's
it
before I got
you know
married.
these tough cases. These tough cases take time.
Yeah. This ends a 53-year-old controversy over the only race in the sport's history to not have an official winner. Allison, 86, is now credited with 85 career Cup Series wins, moving him into sole possession of 4th on NASCAR's all-time wins list. Congratulations, Bobby Allison, on the win.
Now-
It's been a long time coming.
Now, since he's won, let's talk about the money here. Now, the money was a little bit different back then compared to this today. Now, are they going to pay him in today's dollars, or are they going to pay him in dollars back
They
in?
may remunerate him in today's dollars. I believe I'd lobby for that anyway.
Yeah,
Has
you
that
bet
money
you-
been sitting in trust all this time?
Yeah, drawing interest. He's now a billionaire.
True.
Not much interest.
No. Well, National Hockey League superstar Alex Ovechkin is beginning his 20th season in the league, and at 39 years old, he entered this season needing only 42 goals to break Hall of Famer Wayne Gretzky's NHL record of 894 career goals. That's no small record, having stood since 1999. Ovechkin has 8 goals so far this season, 861 for his career. Gretzky, a TV analyst, said, quote, "It's not a question of if he's going to break the record. It's a question of when he is going to break the record. He only needs 34 to break it." So he's on his way.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Alex. Well, it's under 2 weeks until the much ballyhooed Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul fight. It'll be held next Friday, the 15th, at AT&T Stadium in Dallas. The fight is a part of Netflix's boxing special and may only be viewed on that streaming service. Tyson is now 58 years old, and Paul is 27.
God, what are they going to do? Prop him up out there or what? 58 years old?
He's 58. He sure
Lord.
is.
He'd still kill you.
Oh, I wouldn't bet against him.
No.
I'd keep my
bet against
headphones
him.
on just to protect my ears.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, no kidding. On this day in sports, November 9th, 1985, Russia's Garry Kasparov, at 22, becomes the youngest world chess champion ever with a win over countryman Anatoly Karpov. I don't know whether that's sports or not, but it's a game anyway. Huh? 1996, Evander Holyfield upsets Mike Tyson, the aforementioned, in the 11th round. Had a KO over him, a knockout. That bout was held in Las Vegas, and Holyfield regained the heavyweight title that night. He is only the second boxer to win a heavyweight title 3 times. You know who the first was?
Cassius Clay.
The greatest.
Oh.
Cassius Clay.
Muhammad Ali. That's right. Cassius Clay. 2021, 105-year-old Julia Hawkins sets a world record as the first woman and the first American her age to run 100 meters at the Louisiana Senior Olympics. How'd you gonna run 100 when you get to 105?
And she
No.
lived.
Me either.
She lived to tell about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she did.
I might ride one of those electric scooters.
There you go.
That'd be about it, yeah.
Yeah, hop it up, soup it up good, and you can get your record
I
time
could,
that
I'd
way.
fall off of it. if you did
Yeah.
that.
2022, Caitlin Clark makes her sophomore season debut with 26 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists for Iowa versus New Hampshire. She's still putting them through the hoop.
Yeah, that turned out good, didn't
Sure did. Sure did.
it? After that career was over.
Yep.
Only one I've ever got to see that could shoot farther from her. The gunner.
Sitting to your left right there,
Yeah.
huh? Yes, sir.
Hey, she had great range
Yep.
on
she
her
did.
shot. Yeah.
Couple of birthdays that happened on November 9th, 1935. Bob Gibson was born, a Hall of Fame pitcher. He was the National League Cy Young Award winner in 1968 and 1970, and the National League Most Valuable Player in 1968. 9-time Major League Baseball All-Star. Played for who? Anybody know?
Gibson, who did
Yeah.
he play for?
Yeah.
Played for St. Louis.
Cards, that's right. St. Louis Cards.
Yeah, played for the Cardinals.
He was born in Omaha, Nebraska, died in 2020. In 1971, birthday on today, today's date, November 9th, David Duval, the American golfer, won the British Open in 2001, born in Jacksonville, Florida, still alive, only 52 years old. One death on this day of note, 2020, Tom Heinsohn, American NBA star and a coach for the Boston Celtics. He was also a broadcaster in his later career, died at the age of 86.
Yeah, he was really famous for those light beer commercials.
Yeah, he was, wasn't he? I remember. I remember.
Yeah.
Well, that's all for this week's sports headlines, brought to you, as always, by Fast Signs. Fast Signs, make your statement. Owned by our boss. I'm Donnie Moore. Back to you, Gunner.
I'm here with Donnie Moore and, of course, Marcus Fitzsimmons and Steve Hodson. I want to remind all our listeners that you're listening to the Goatee Sports page on WKCE 92.5 FM and 1180 AM on your radio dial, the stations that plays the greatest music of all time. WKCE is my home station, and I hope you will make it yours. WKCE, where the music of the past lives today.
Mid-Century Radio.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about the college football playoffs. They came out with their rankings last week. Tennessee is ranked 7th, and I want to talk a little bit about their resume, and you get your guys' feedback. North Carolina State, they beat them. North Carolina State's 4-4. I'd rate North Carolina State about lower end of average right now.
Yep.
Florida 4-4, lower end of average if I had to rate them. Oklahoma 5-4, lower end of average again. Kentucky, another one of their wins. Kentucky's 3-6. I'd rate them just plain poor. Arkansas 5-4, a little bit on the low end of average. Alabama 6-2. I would rate them good.
Good.
So if I'm looking at Tennessee's resume right there, Stephen, if you see it any differently than I do, I'm looking at Alabama. They're hanging their hat on Alabama right now, going into Mississippi State today, and of course Georgia in the big matchup next week. You see that any differently than I see it?
No, I agree with you 100%. It's going to be they've got Mississippi State. You can't let up on them. Georgia's going to come in here. They're not going to be happy. And Vanderbilt's the one I'm worried about.
Yeah, you got to worry a little bit about them.
But what was funny was last week, Ole Miss and Tennessee made the same case. They were both pointing at each other saying, at least I didn't lose to that team.
Yeah.
Because Kentucky beat Ole Miss and Tennessee lost to Arkansas. Those were the teams they both beat last week.
This resume right here could even get damaged further tonight if Alabama, and this could really happen, go down to LSU tonight and get beat down there in Baton Rouge, because LSU, a night game, they're pretty tough at night down there, and it wouldn't surprise me. And then you're looking at Alabama 6-3 team, and I think they're done as far as the playoff. I mean, I'd be surprised if they would take a three-loss team into the playoffs, but that would hurt the deal right there. Then that would make the game at Georgia next week even that more important from my perspective. But on the bright side, last week a lot of things happened in college football that benefited Tennessee. Penn State lost. They were undefeated at the time. Iowa State lost. They were undefeated at the time. Texas A&M lost. They're a 7-2 team now. Clemson lost. They're a 6-2 team now. And Pittsburgh lost, and they were undefeated last week until they lost. So there you are. A lot of games right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games, Steve, that helped Tennessee with.
What about Indiana?
Yeah, what about Indiana? And I hate to bring up Indiana, but let's talk a little bit about Indiana. Indiana is 9-0. They're 9-0 in the Big Ten. We're going to talk about some of these Big Ten teams, but they're 9-0. They've got Michigan at home today, sold out, homecoming. I don't know when the last time it was when they beat Michigan, but they've got them at home today. This is big. If they beat Michigan today, I don't see how you can keep Indiana out of the playoffs, because they've got Ohio State and Columbus in 2 weeks. They got 2 weeks to get ready for them, and they finished with Purdue, who's having a dismal season. You're looking at 11-1 Indiana team. I don't see how you keep them out of the playoffs. The argument around here, I hear the argument all the time. Hey, they don't play anybody. I don't agree. I don't disagree with you one bit. I think their strength of schedule is about 105 or something like that. But they're playing a Big Ten schedule like Tennessee's playing an SEC schedule that were assigned to them by the Big Ten to play. Now, the difference in Indiana and some of these other teams is the fact that they just haven't been beating teams. They've been absolutely destroying teams. Right. They're averaging, and they're on at 3:30 today, and I'm gonna watch them again. But they are beating people badly. I mean, they're averaging 46 points a game. They got excellent quarterback. They got speed on offense. They got speed on defense. Steve, this is an outstanding Indiana football team. They're no fluke.
I've watched them play. They're not a fluke.
And Lon Hersbron used to say, boys, that speed kills. Mm-hmm. And I watch these teams. They drop back to pass, and they're coming. Indiana, it's not like, hey, we're blitzing on this play. They're blitzing on every single play, guys. I mean, they're sending the house, and I mean, they're quick, aren't they, Steve, as far as getting back there to that quarterback?
Can't teach speed.
And I know how Tennessee people have felt around there. Well, they got the first ranking down. Boy, I'm feeling really good. They got us matched up against Indiana. Well, you better think about that a little bit, because I'll tell you right now, they're a pretty solid football team.
How good do you feel? Because if there were some things to happen in these last couple of weeks, how do you feel about it if Indiana has to play in the Big Ten championship game?
Well, they might, but there's no guarantee they're going to be in that championship game. It looks like Oregon's going to be in there, but then you're going to have to decide, Ohio State's already beat Penn State, and Indiana is going to play Ohio State in 2 weeks, so it's all going to be worked out. But Penn State, got to consider them for the playoffs because it looks like they're going to win the rest of their games. I mean, their schedule's not that tough. Ohio State, depending on how they do with Indiana, they could win out. And you're looking at Indiana, they got a one loss, and you're going to look at Oregon, they may not have any loss. So you got 4 pretty good football teams that could end up all with
if Indiana can prove themselves and beat Ohio State, they're going to be in the Big Ten championship
I don't think that game means a
Oregon.
thing. All they have to do is stay close to Ohio State. I don't see how in the world you can keep an 11-1 football team out of the playoffs.
No.
You can't do it.
Especially when they're putting 2 loss teams in there.
No, I mean, you know, if you were just like Tennessee right here, if Indiana's like Tennessee and maybe some of these other teams, and week after week after week against competition like Kentucky, Tennessee plays a Kentucky team with 15 players out, and they beat them. Well, the game was 21-18 with 2 minutes to go in the game. And an Indiana team that's beating people. I mean, they beat Nebraska 56-7. Oh. And Nebraska went into Columbus and played Ohio State the next week and got beat by 6. I mean, there's a lot of difference between beating somebody by 6 points and beating somebody by 49 points.
That's right.
And that's the way they've been playing. So that's all I'm going to say about Indiana. But the Big Ten, you got Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State, and Penn State could all end up with 1 loss. How do you going to keep them 4 teams out of the playoffs?
Where's Notre Dame?
Well, Notre Dame's not in the Big Ten, but they're 7-1, and they've got here's what Notre Dame's got left. They got Florida State, they've got Virginia, they got Army and Southern California left. So they're probably going to be a 1-loss team too. I mean, that's a very attractive schedule.
Yeah.
Well, Florida State will give them.
Well,
Florida State will give them.
Well, they're not having a very good year. But anyway, you got those 4 teams. Now let's switch to the SEC because that's where everybody's heart is down here. The SEC, and you know, there's nobody else pretty much. Look at this deal. Look at this, and I know they all just kind of eat each other up each week. But you got Georgia at 7-1, Texas A&M is 7-2, Tennessee is 7-1, and I'm going right down by the conference standings. Texas is 7-1, LSU is 6-2, Mississippi 7-2. Alabama 6-2 and Missouri 6-2. You got to think there's going to be some 2-loss teams in there. 1, 2 in the playoffs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 SEC teams are still in the hunt. Steve, 8.
Wow.
With 4 games to go.
As long as you got Ohio State, you got the others. You know, Alabama is a 2-loss team, but you got Ohio State, Notre Dame. Those northern sports writers, they keep those guys up there on top.
I've heard that all my life, too. I've heard that all my life. Go ahead, Marcus. 8 teams.
There are, and, you know, back when they said this is how we were going to do it, and I pointed out then that these conference championship games were going to burn somebody who was worthy of being in as the preliminary entry fee for some of these conferences. So if they don't play a conference championship game, if we just went to the end of the season, you're looking at Texas and Georgia probably both being in the top 5 when this thing at the end of the regular season. But they're going to end up playing each other in the SEC championship, and one of them is going to be knocked down to a 10 or 11 or 12 seed because they're going to lose in a conference championship game. Just because, and it's going to be a rematch of a game we've already seen. And possibly set up a 3rd meeting. That's not going to be good for the system.
The way this is set up now with the 12 teams, I'm not a big fan of conference championship games now. And we know. And go ahead, Steve. Say it again. Why are we having conference championship games? M-O-N-E-Y.
Very
money.
simple.
But like Marcus says, can hurt you. Can hurt your league if you're not careful.
Same reason you have a 2-8 team playing in the TSSAA playoffs.
Yeah.
2-8. We got 3-1-9 teams playing.
Yeah, I understand that.
Hey, if you take 4 teams from the SEC to get in here, Donnie, 4 teams in the playoffs.
4 teams.
And you take 4 teams in the Big Ten, that you got 4 teams. It's got 1 loss. It's got 1 loss.
Yeah.
And that's 8 teams out of 12 right there.
It sure is.
So you got 4 spots open.
2/3 of them.
You got BYU out in the Big 12 at 8-0, and you got Iowa State at 7-1. So you got 2 teams right there that you're going to have to make a decision on. You got Miami and the ACC at 9-0, and you got a team that's under the radar right now that people ought to start paying a little bit of attention to, and that's SMU at 8-1. So you got a couple of teams right there, and Clemson's at 6-2, and Pittsburgh's at 7-1. So you got a little indecision right there, and then you got Notre Dame and Boise State both at 7-1. You got 4 spots open. Steve, somebody's not going to be happy here.
Is there ever anybody happy?
It's okay, Mike.
I thought we were getting rid of all this unhappiness when we went to 12
I think we've got
teams.
42 bowl games for everybody else, something like that.
Yeah, well, who's going to watch them?
Maybe we should have gone to 16 instead of 12.
Yeah, well, then there would be that. Yeah, there would be that deal. But I mean, I like all of this. I like all this controversy, and some of it's going to clear up in the next 4 weeks. You got Tennessee going to Georgia, and you got LSU, and you got Alabama tonight, and you got Ohio State and Indiana coming up in a couple of weeks, and heck, you got Oklahoma and Missouri today. You got BYU out at Utah today, which is going to be
that'd be a tough one. Yeah, that'd be a tough ball game.
Yeah, that could be a tough game. So, what are we looking at right here? Are we looking at 4 teams out of the SEC? Marcus, are we looking at 4 out of the SEC and 4 out of the Big Ten?
I think if it was today, the SEC would be safe with, say, 4. But as to what it will look like come Thanksgiving weekend and what it will look like after we play conference championship games, I think it's going to look totally different than it does right now. Because, like I said, there's somebody, and it could be SMU that gets penalized, because if SMU has to go and play Miami and becomes a 2-loss team, I think they're out. I think they lose all their chances.
Let me ask you this, Donnie, because the SEC is the strongest conference in the country. I'm not arguing that from top to bottom. I think it's the strongest conference in the country, and you got 4 teams that you're looking at. Is there any possibility that one of these playoff teams from the SEC could have 3 losses? Say an Alabama, or say a Georgia. Let's say Georgia loses today at Ole Miss, and they lose to Tennessee. They got 3 losses, but is there any chance that they take a 3-loss SEC team?
Well, I guess anything's possible, but you wouldn't think that a 3-loss team would get in.
So let me put this one to you. Let's say Texas loses to A&M and still makes the conference championship game. Georgia loses to Tennessee, but Tennessee loses to Vanderbilt, so Georgia makes that conference championship team. So you've got teams in there. One of those teams is going to lose. One of those teams is going to lose in that conference championship game, be a 3-loss team, and you're going to say, of the big 2, of the teams that made your conference championship game, one of them's not worthy in that top 12.
Yeah.
But we're going to take the number 3 team from your conference above that number 2.
Yep. And if you leave one of these SEC teams out, Steve, then you're going to have all these fans down here in the South say, hey, they don't play anybody in the Big 10, the Big 12, and the ACC.
Exactly. That's exactly
because that's ingrained. It's like everybody votes Republican down here, and nobody in the country plays anybody, right? Is that pretty true?
That's exactly
Nobody
right.
plays anybody.
Mike, it's the SEC. It just pays more.
I understand.
It just pays more.
I understand.
I like that.
Yeah. But I'm foreseeing I'm foreseeing some controversy brewing, in all this.
Oh yeah,
it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it is going to be fun.
Be interesting to say the least.
Yeah. College games today. Well, let's talk a little bit about these pairings. Boise State and Ohio State, Steve. Indiana, Tennessee, Alabama, Texas, Notre Dame, and Penn State. You know, there's some real traditional games. I mean, there's some big games right there. If it holds, but of course next week it probably won't look like that.
No.
But and Tennessee would play a home game.
Right.
You know, they would be at home, and I think that first round playing at home is going to make a lot of difference. Don't you think?
103,000-4,000 people. Yeah, it makes a big
I mean,
difference.
if Notre Dame's still in it, Tennessee's still in it, Ohio State's still in it, and Indiana's still in it, I'm going to tell you right now, if I was Tennessee, Texas, Alabama, and a 4th team from Georgia, I'm going to tell you right now, I would rather play my first-round game down here than going up there and playing in Columbus and South Bend, where it's going to be about
30-degree difference. Yeah.
or snowing and 15 degrees
like
above zero up
it.
there for a first-round game.
It's like playing in Green Bay.
Absolutely. Donnie Moore, where are we at?
Time for a break, Mike.
Okay. All right, listen, it's time for a break, and when we return, we'll be back to close out today's show. You're listening to the Goatee Sports page, and now stay tuned for the best in local sports.
The Roger L. Newman Company began in 1984 with a vision of providing Blount County with excellent heating and cooling service. Mr. Newman also wanted a real business. No gimmicks and no high-pressure sales. They just fix it or replace it. They want to stay within your budget and make you comfortable. Their motto still stands true today. Call us first, we'll be there. Call Roger L. Newman Company at 982-5446 or visit online at rogerlnewman.com. Cooler temperatures are approaching. Upgrade your furnace now for as little as $50 a month. For over 50 years and 3 generations, the people of Blount County have trusted Stevenson Tire with their vehicles and their families. Our mission has always been simple: to provide quality products at reasonable prices with exceptional customer service. Featuring tire products from Michelin, BF Goodrich, Uniroyal, Bridgestone, Firestone, and Yokohama, Stevenson Tire also offers alignment and brake services at affordable prices. Stevenson Tire Company, 2411 East Broadway Avenue in Maryville. Call 983-1621 or online at stevensonTire.net.
Yeah. Hey, welcome back to the Bluetick Tavern in downtown Maryville. This is Mike Edwards, and I'm here along with Donnie Moore, Marcus Fitzsimmons, and long-time Blount County official Steve Hodson.
Mike, can I ask Hodson a question? You pick on his brain for a minute.
Okay, go ahead.
Steve.
Fire what?
Is there a rule that if you leave the field limping off, that you can't come in the next play?
If you leave the field in what?
If you're taken off the field for a medical reason,
yeah,
if the trainers come out.
Yeah.
How
you
long
have
do
to
you
sit
have?
out one play.
At least one play.
Yes.
Is that rule? Have you heard rumors? Is that rule up for review for adjustment?
Not as long as Don Talbot's on the board.
Okay. I just wonder because we've seen that. We're seeing that in college, and we know how things filter down.
Well, what we're having a problem with, Marcus, is that this knee coverage. You know, in high school ball, McWhorter wants those knees covered, and they brought a orthopedic surgeon in and talked to the national, advisory committee and said, well, as long as they're in high school, they need to do that. However, when they did that, they said, no, they need to have those knees. But look at the college teams. I mean, they wear Bermuda shorts.
Shorts, yeah.
And the pros, they don't anymore. It's worse than that. But high school ball, and you see the kickers, and they chew us out all the time about, I watched that game. You didn't make, 15 have his knees covered. But you're out there watching 22 people trying to, make sure nobody's knocking anybody down and killing them and holding and whatever. And you're not worried about knee coverage, but what we've got at the TSSAA level is a situation where, they're worried about where the coaches are in the way or worried about this. And, our tradition in Blount County, we worry about the football game. We're going to call the football game. We're not worried. If the long as the coach is not wearing me out, then I'm not going to bother him. But it's really changed the whole idea of officiating football, and that's why you can't get anybody anymore.
Yeah,
I
that's
understand
true.
that. Yeah. Mike, go ahead. I
right,
didn't want to hijack your segment. I just wanted to ask
listen,
the question.
while we got an official in here, I want to talk a little bit about college football and pass interference. I know, I just feel, and I'm not official, but I think the toughest call in college football is pass interference, and in basketball, it's the charge or the block. The charge or the block. And in college football, that pass interference call, every time the ball goes up in the air, before it gets to somebody on the sidelines is going like this, up and down with a hand. Where's the flag? Where's the flag?
Exactly.
Where's the flag? Where's the flag?
Well,
And it just seems like those calls are becoming bigger and bigger and bigger in college football. So I'm getting to my question. When are we going to see to where it can be reviewable? Or will you think we're going to get to that point?
I think you will get to that point. I really do. And I agree with you. You can see them holding the hands, holding the jerseys, turning them with the, away. They're taught that. They're coached that, how to do that. Defensive backs are coached that way. And you've seen on a play, I'm covering you, and I'm looking here, the officials over here, and I've got my arm around you, pulling you, and they don't see that, but everybody else sees it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eventually, I think they'll go to it.
Yeah.
I really do.
Well, I just think it can be a play that can
might last all day.
Well, it could be a play where whether you advance in the playoffs or you don't, because the game can come right down to a play where someone's trying to score on a pass play to the end zone, and
That's right.
you are. It's not reviewable. You
don't see that. I can remember high school ball. I wish they would, in my opinion, consolidate college and high school ball rules, period. I remember Sam Kiker, love his heart. He gave me signals of the hand over the head one night out at Heritage, and I kept watching him. And I finally just went over there and I said, Coach, what are you talking about? He said, they called pass interference, and that was an uncatchable pass. Hard. And I said, well, that doesn't work on Friday night. That's only on Saturday.
That's this Saturday.
And poor old Sam, he said, oh, well, I didn't know that. I said, well, I've got a rule book. You can read it. But I agree with you. It needs to be reviewed. It needs to be watched. That's why they've got 8 people on the field now.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a center judge, you got an umpire, you got 2 side judge, field judge, back judge. They need, in some places, they've got 2 back judges.
Yeah. Well, it's such a huge call that can mean the difference between winning the football game or losing the football game. Now let's talk about something else that's big, and that's the injury situation on the field, where it's gotten out of control. I don't see a lot of games from other conferences. If I see games down here, I would have to say in the SEC that's out of control.
It is out of control.
It's out of control, and the commissioner there a week ago decided to levy some fines and so forth if people are found to be guilty of that. I don't know how that's going to be enforced. I don't know how the week after you can look at a film and say, well, he's fake. That it's not an injury. It's not an injury. I don't know how you're going to determine that.
They run out on the field and fall down.
So
and they're hurt.
The one last week was the most egregious I'd seen yet with Kentucky, where the player was laying on the field, got up, ran 10 yards back to his own side of the line of scrimmage, fell down again, and then grabbed his arm.
Why would it not be better to give the teams, instead of 3 timeouts every half, 4 timeouts? But if you have an injury on the field, then you're going to it's going to cost you a timeout.
Right.
Well, it's going to cost you a timeout.
I would rather.
I'm going to tell you right now, if somebody's not really seriously hurt, are you getting that guy off the field? You better believe it.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to either get up and get off of that field, or they're going to get him off of there pretty quick. But with 4 timeouts, you got if you got somebody injured out there, you're going to have to take yourself a timeout.
You know what funds it is the commercials, and time's money.
Sure it is.
And that's the whole deal right there.
I would much rather them. That's why I was asking Hot about this earlier. I would much rather see, and it would be a pain in the butt for the officials, I understand. But if you leave the field for an injury, medically speaking, you should not be able to come on the next play. There's no way they can treat you that fast for anything that would cause you to hit the ground outside of.
No, I think you got to sit out a series. You got to sit out the series.
If you had to sit out the entire series, I think you would see an end to this foolishness.
We have a rule, and now this is again in high school ball. Concussion protocol is the big thing.
Yeah.
And I've watched it for 56 years. I've been doing all this stuff, and I've watched it. and I've watched them come on there, and it's you have to have a doctor's written to come back in the game. Period.
I know that I've seen, I've watched some games Tennessee play, and Kentucky, they had a lot of guys hit the field last week.
Oh,
I had 15 guys out, but there was a lot of guys that hit the ground last week, from Kentucky. But I go back to the Florida game, and sometimes Tennessee fans think, it's just the other team coming in here trying to slow us down.
Right.
I go back to the Florida game, and Florida has driven down to the 1-yard line. I mean, they've gone all the way down to the 1 yard. Got their starting quarterback in there. This is before he got hurt. We had a Tennessee player go to the ground right there on the 1-yard line, and it took time. We went to commercial, and we come back. What happened on the next play? That quarterback for Florida fumbled the ball, and we got it down there inside the 1-yard line, a crucial play right there. So what I'm trying to say is that going down kind of works. It works both ways. It works both ways. It's not all been one-sided.
Well, the thing
because
that
Tennessee
bothers
speeds up the game.
Psychological.
Yeah.
You saw what I'm not the doctor, and I won't say they did it. There were several instances where I would have said it looked very much like the Kentucky player just fell down.
Yes, I'm
But
going
the
to disagree
problem
with
being
you.
is when they actually had a player hurt in the second half, and he was legitimately hurt, he was getting booed.
Oh, yeah.
And he was legitimately hurt
big
because
time.
the fans couldn't tell the difference.
No.
I'll tell you another instance I noticed this season, too, was when Tennessee played Oklahoma. There was an Oklahoma player standing on the sidelines, and in order to gain advantage, one of their coaches pushed him out onto the field, and he fell. Just near
What
the
happened
sideline.
to Alabama, too?
I did. I remember
Yeah.
that.
Well, he lost his balance and he pulled a muscle, when he pushed him.
I guess.
Yeah.
Something happened.
But,
man,
They work every angle that they can.
Sure they do.
And that's been going on, but they need to be punished. That's why they throw the money in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
but as many
I wouldn't want to pay $100,000 because of that.
But as many Kentucky players that hit the field last week, and a few Tennessee players,
Right.
I hadn't heard a word all week about anybody. No fines were divvied out.
No fines. But of those
They're not through.
Kentucky players,
Yeah.
3 of them
No,
are,
you're right. They're not.
3 of them were on the midweek injury report from Kentucky after the Tennessee game. 3 of the, I think there were
Through for the
6.
I got you.
Okay, we don't have much time left here, but
Nope.
Tennessee and Mississippi State plays today. I haven't said a word about Mississippi State because I have no respect for them whatsoever. I think they're hapless. They
Remember
can't
what-
stop anybody.
remember what
but
Lonnie said
I'm
about
going to
them.
ask everybody else in here before we leave, will the Vols score 24 points in this football game? Will they score 24 or more points?
More.
Well, they haven't scored 30 points, well, hardly the entire year against anybody that can play, more or less.
More.
More than 24.
24 by half.
24 by half?
Yeah, I'm taking the over.
You're taking 24?
Yeah.
Man, that's a lot of points. 24 points, and we've been stuck in the 20s. We got 21 against Kentucky last week with 15 out. I'll be the only one, and I'll say that we will not win. We will not win by more than 24 points today.
No, I wouldn't. That'd be a safe. I'd agree with that. That'd be safe.
You're going to agree with that?
Yeah.
All right. All right.
All right. It's time.
Bo
All right.
Knuckles would love you.
Huh?
Bo Knuckles would love you.
Yeah, he would.
I,
don't know
guess,
what
I
the
don't
line
know. I don't
is.
feel real good about that, but my guys, we haven't beaten anybody hardly by 24. We haven't scored 24 points,
That's
I don't know. We'll
All
see.
right.
Blow the whistle. Hey, that'll do it for today's edition of the Goatees Sports Page. Thanks to Aaron Ishmael back at Loud Media, our host, the Bluetick Tavern, and all our sponsors. For Donnie Moore and Marcus Fitzsimmons, until next Saturday, this is Mike Edwards, the Greenfield Gunner, wishing everyone good sports.
And that's the final whistle. Join us again